I'd like to talk a bit about being the best possible person you can be for the people that are most important to you. I think that very often in life we sadly save our peak frustrations, our most worrisome feelings, and our most negative behaviors for the people closest to us, our significant others, our family, our children, our friends. And it doesn't have to be this way. And an example that I think hits home with most people, if not everyone, at some point in time, is a scenario in which you are having a bad time. People call it different things, but you're having a bad day, you woke up on the wrong side of the bed, things are just not going well. Maybe you're having some computer trouble, maybe you can't find your car keys, maybe you have to go into work all of a sudden unplanned. Any number of maybe you spilled something on the carpet. Any number of situations that are kind of a drag, and these situations might come up and cause you to escalate yourself into more of a negative reaction than you might have just otherwise or in other situations. And your heart rate gets up, and you're looking for your keys, or you're trying to find a rag to clean up the mess, or you just keep thinking about this person that made you angry, and you're like, where are they? Where is that? Right? And you start to just actually physically get a little bit angry, and maybe you're shouting, you're saying some expletives, or in very unfortunate situations, maybe you even start to lash out a bit at those around you. Maybe even people you care a lot about, right? And it's, why don't you get off your butt and help me look? Or many other such examples, right? Hopefully I don't have to go too far into describing this, and you guys are on the same page, and you get what I'm talking about. This escalation of frustration that seems normal, seems fine. Sometimes things happen. We don't want to be frustrated. Sometimes things happen, right? But what I would say to you is to imagine yourself in one of these scenarios with someone that you do this to, a friend, a family member, a child, around you, and you being frustrated with them, perhaps lashing out at them, or even if you're not lashing out at them, just being unpleasant to be around, right? And we all know that, right, when someone is just like running around, pulling out their hair and kind of freaking out because they can't find their purse or something, like, we understand, and maybe we're even running around trying to help you find your purse too. But it's unpleasant to be around, and the friend who is more laid back is generally more fun to be around. So there are these behaviors we have which are very detrimental to the people around us. And what I would ask you to do is to imagine yourself in one of these situations. And now imagine that someone rings your doorbell, and they are not a very close friend. They are perhaps a little bit more removed. Not a total stranger, but an acquaintance. Perhaps a mailman, or a teacher from school, or an elderly neighbor. or someone of the opposite sex, or I guess these days, not the opposite sex, sorry, but someone of any sex who you are attracted to. Let's say it's someone you're attracted to, a little bit even, right? And they come and ring your doorbell right in the middle of your, your kind of unpleasant, not going to call it a freak out, but it might be that bad, but your negative behavior that's escalated into you kind of having a hissy fit about your lost car keys or whatever, and you're stomping around the house and making it unpleasant for everyone else in your house for a moment. And maybe it's not a big deal, and your friends can handle it, right? And they're like, oh, geez, there he goes, looking for his car keys again. Geez, when's he going to learn? Lose his head if it wasn't attached. And maybe they're able to be laid back about it. But I can tell you they probably would prefer if you didn't do that. And so anyway, to get to the point, someone knocks at the door. And you have to answer the door, and you're right in the middle of this tantrum. Someone calls your phone as well. It's also a good example of this. How does your behavior change when you go to answer the door and talk to your mailman or your neighbor or a teacher or, let's just say, a cop, maybe, who's going through the neighborhood and wants to talk to people in the neighborhood for some reason? And one of these people knocks on your door, and how's your attitude going to change? If you're like me, if you're like most people I know, your attitude is going to take a shift. And you're not even going to think about it particularly much. This is just going to happen unconsciously. But you're going to mellow out. You're going to reserve yourself. And you're going to start to almost immediately present yourself as a more reasonable, civilized person who is maybe not having a hissy fit right this moment, basically. And you don't think about that very much, but you're incredibly capable of doing that, right? And you do that like a light switch, and that doorbell rings, and you have to answer the doorbell, right? And I think I really learned this lesson watching my mom as a kid. When my mom would get a phone call or something and have to talk to someone else while she's in the middle of one of her tantrums, basically, right? So like, where are my keys? She's running around the house trying to find something, or she's maybe bitching about some problem that she has that everyone really needs to listen to, and is off on a very negative tirade about someone, and then the phone rings, and it's, hello, oh yes, right? And people definitely have different levels of this, and not everyone is quite as dramatic and extreme of a flip as my mom was, but I really do think that that most people, if not everyone, has some version of this inside it. And yes, some people apply it differently, right? There's a lot of people who the mailman rings the door and they'll still be in a bad mood, and they'll be like, well, fuck you too, mailman. I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. And I don't, I guess those people are still benefiting from this talk. They just need to apply the talk to even more people, probably. But even if you wouldn't turn it off for the mailman, I think for everybody there is a person you would turn it off for, unless you're just such a negative, shitty person to be around that you're so far down that rabbit hole you don't have any friends and you're too far gone. I guess those are very special cases in which you need some different advice. But for most everybody else, you have this special innate ability to just instantly and completely change your behavior and your mannerism and your level of escalation. And what you really need to do is decide if you're using that appropriately. Because my plea to you, the point of this video, is to say that it's not just the pizza guy who we should put on a smile for, okay? It's not just the mailman who should be able to interrupt our freak out or our argument or our hissy fit or our just being angry. It shouldn't be just those half strangers who can influence us so much. We need to recognize this ability within us and make the choice, the conscious choice, to apply that more often to people we care about. Because the reason we do it for the mailman or the pizza guy or the policeman who comes to the door, the reason that we can quit freaking out and put on a more reasonable person's face for them is because we know that that freak out version of us is unpleasant to be around. It's a bad image to project. Some part of our brain knows that. And the only reason that we get away with doing that to the people closest to us is because we feel they don't have a choice, right? If they're our children, they really don't have a choice. They're dependent. They can't go anywhere, right? My children can't just run away from me and tell me they don't want to hang out. They don't like me if I get a little angry when I'm looking for something, right? You could almost say that because the negative consequences are seemingly perhaps more limited, we inflict more upon those closest to us and those we love. But this is not a choice that you have to continue to make. It's a choice that your unconscious lizard brain is making for you. But you can override that consciously, and you can choose to be a more positive, happy, pleasant person to be around for your children, for your significant other, and for your friends. And I think you'll find you'll have a lot happier, healthier, more productive life because of it.